Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Let us continue with our tafsir of Surah Aal-Imraan bihawlillahi wa quwwatih. We are on ayah number 141. قال الله تبارك وتعالى وليمحص الله الذين آمنوا ويمحق الكافرين. So this ayah continues from the previous ayah, talking about an injury or a wound touching you, then a similar wound has touched your enemies, and how Allah Jalla wa Ala alternates the success and losses amongst people, so that you cannot always be successful and you will not always be a failure. So continuing on from that theme, he justifies changing the fortunes of people by saying that Allah may make tamhis. This comes from the verb mahhasa yumahhisu tamhisan, which means tanqiya, to clean and to purify. So purify how? When you suffer misfortune at the decree of Allah Jalla wa Ala, then this cleanses you from your sins. It is also possible to be interpreted that Allah Jalla wa Ala cleanses the believers in that He separates them from the fake Muslims, that is the munafiqeen. And so thereby the Muslim community is cleansed of the munafiqeen in that way. So both interpretations are valid, because when you're in times of happiness and prosperity, it's difficult to separate the true believers from the fakes. But people's real and true colors show during times of adversity and loss and suffering. Just like in the Battle of Uhud, a third of the Muslim army turned away because they were from the munafiqeen, and they did not march out to the Uhud mountain for the battle. But that was a good thing, because then the army was cleansed of the hypocrites, who would simply be a liability in the war, not an asset. He also says وَلِيَمْحَقَ الْكَافِرِينَ, and that He may mahaq, which means to destroy, the kafirin. There are many words in Arabic meaning to destroy, and mahaq is one of them. And when does this happen? This happens when the kuffar suffer a loss. So the Muslims will destroy the kuffar, of course by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala. So reflecting on this ayah, we take the main lesson that even in loss there is victory. When you suffer, of course it's not enjoyable, especially if you lose a battle. You may feel you have lost, but even in losses you have gained something, which is that your sins have been expiated, which means you come on Yawm al-Qiyamah with a clean bill of health. So from that angle there is victory. And we also learn that Allah Jalla wa Ala does what He does for a noble end which He has intended. So sometimes the Muslims could be granted victory and sometimes loss. But whatever the outcome may be, there is an intended goal behind it. Something that Allah Jalla wa Ala plans to accomplish. So then this makes us accept the fact that there is always wisdom behind the decree of Allah Jalla wa Ala, whether this decree is bitter or sweet, and it is our job to submit and be patient. And we also pick up that the end result of the kuffar is destruction, be it in this life or in the hereafter. Ayah 142. Am hasibtum an tadkhulu al-jannata walamma ya'lam Allahu alladhina jahadu minkum wa ya'lama as-sabirin. He says am hasibtum. Normally means or, this or that. In this context, however, it means hal, which is a question. Do you? Hasibtum, do you consider? Or do you think that you will enter al-Jannah? Jannah is a key word we spoke about before. Walamma means not yet. So it is going to happen, but it has not happened yet. But we anticipate it. And Allah has not yet known those who jahadu, strive, minkum, from you. And He has not yet known those who are patient. The harf lamma makes the verb يعلم majzoom, so يعلم. But if recited in continuity, the verb يعلم would have a kasra. So it would read وَلَمَّا يَعْلَمِ اللَّهُ with the kasra on the meme. And the reason for this is because two letters which are sakin, which have a sukun on top of them, when they meet, it's impossible to pronounce unless you have a haraka, and that haraka becomes the kasra. So reflecting on this ayah, the main lesson to take is that if you indeed want to enter Jannah, it cannot happen just by lazing around and not being active. You have to strive. The striving mentioned in this ayah primarily is concerned with fighting. However, striving can be done in all sorts of different ways, because the root letters jahada has this idea of exerting an effort, so making hard work. Not easy work, but hard work, striving. This is how Jannah is attained. Also, it is attained with sabr, with patience. And this includes all three types of patience. So number one, patience in proactively performing righteous actions. And number two, being patient on the bitter decree of Allah Jalla wa Ala. And number three, being patient in refraining from evil actions. As for just hoping for Jannah, then this is wishful thinking, and wishful thinking has no place in the deen of Al-Islam. Maybe it does in Christianity, but not in Al-Islam. And also we can take from this ayah what we have mentioned before about the knowledge of Allah being sabiq and lahiq, because you notice he says Allah has not yet known those who make jihad and those who practice sabr. But of course Allah does know who these people are. He has past eternal knowledge. But the knowledge spoken of in this ayah is the ilmun lahiq, or what we call the subsequent knowledge, meaning the knowledge which takes place after the event, not before the event. Ayah 143. وَلَقَدْ كُنْتُمْ تَمَنَّوْنَ الْمَوْتَ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ تَلْقَوْهُ فَقَدْ رَأَيْتُمُوهُ وَأَنْتُمْ تَنْظُرُونَ. The opening letters وَلَقَدْ, the waw is the waw al-qasam, wallahi. The lam is for emphasis, and qad, we said it makes the past tense into a perfect tense. So there are three huruf of emphasis here. So he says, you had been tamannawna, meaning wishing, tamanna yatamanni, tamanniyan, to wish for, al-maut, death. The death spoken of here actually refers to dying on the battlefield. So in other words, dying as a shaheed, as a martyr. And so this ayah is for those of the companions who did not die in the battle of Badr, and they were wishing to die as a shaheed, because of course this is the most noble type of death. So what we have is that we have some of these Muslimin from the Sahaba, they yearned and were eager to fight the kuffar. But now that it actually took place, and they felt the loss that they suffered, they tasted the bitterness of it. So basically, it is a rebuke to those people who are yearning to fight. Oftentimes, when you give people what they ask, they regret it. And this was an example here. They regretted it after what happened at the Battle of Uhud. And we have a companion hadith to this effect. In the Sahihain, the Prophet ﷺ said, do not wish for the meeting of the enemy, meaning in the battlefield, and ask Allah for well-being. But if you meet them, then be patient and know that Jannah is under the shades of the swords. So you should not want to yearn to fight the enemy. This is not good, because you do not know what the outcome will be like. It could be extremely bitter for you, just as the Sahaba experienced in the Battle of Uhud. However, if you do have to march out, then you have to be patient and give it your best shot. He says you have seen it, meaning you have seen the death. In other words, you have seen your fellow fighters dying in front of you in the Battle of Uhud, where the Muslimin sustained 70 shuhada, whilst you are looking. Now, Of course they were looking, otherwise how could they see it? So this could be an emphasis, or it could be a ta'sis, which is to give rise to a new meaning. And if it's a ta'sis, then it would mean that you were looking with full attention, because you could see something and not pay attention to it. You could see a friend of yours on the street and not know that this is your friend because your mind is wandering somewhere else. However, what the ayah means to say here is that you saw it with full attention. You were not heedless. You fully realized what was going on. So reflecting on this ayah, we can take the obvious lesson. Do not hope to fight the enemy, because fighting is not a positive thing. It is something negative, something that you try to avoid. If we can have the kuffar embracing Islam without any fight, this is ultimately what we should be yearning for and hoping for, not to fight them. Fighting is only ever a last resort. So one must not let their ego get the better of them and want to fight the enemy because you want to prove yourself to be the most macho man. No, you must leave your ego at home, because your ego is not your amigo. Okay, so we ask the question, is it permissible to ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to die as a shaheed? The answer is yes. We have the authentic hadith that whoever asks Allah for shahada with sincerity, then Allah will grant him shahada even if he dies on his bed. So asking for shahada is fine, but that is not the same as yearning to meet the enemy in a battle. Because there are many ways that a person could die as a shaheed. For example, dying in a plague would grant you shahada even though you have not fought anyone. And it is similar to yearning for death because life has become hard. This is also impermissible. So we say you can wish for shahada, but you must not have this quote-unquote bring it on type mentality, yearning to fight the kuffar. هذا والله أعلم.